Move your yacht immediately or we'll have it towed and fined by the HOA. That was the exact threat tossed my way by a woman in a floppy sun hat and oversized sunglasses, pointing at my boat like she owned the lake. I didn't flinch. I just stood calmly on the dock, watching her bark into a walkie-talkie as she rallied her little troop of HOA followers. They had spread out across my waterfront like they were hosting a summer carnival, tables, coolers, fishing poles, and loud music. But it wasn't just the fact they had invaded my property. It was their bold assumption that they had the right. What they didn't know was this: I didn't just own the dock. I owned the lake. Every drop of it. So when they demanded I move my yacht or face legal consequences, I gave them a spectacle they'd never forget. In the middle of their grand HOA barbecue, I shut it all down. I revoked their access, flipped their tables, and locked the gates. But just as I was about to enjoy the silence, my phone buzzed with a warning. The HOA president was threatening legal action. And she wasn't bluffing. Let me tell you how all this madness started. Before the HOA skirmishes and neighborhood protests, my life was peaceful. I just moved back to my hometown of Fairview Harbor, Georgia after 2 decades in Seattle working in tech. At 45, divorced and child-free, I had enough saved to retire early and pursue the one thing that mattered most to me: restoring my beloved 1978 Chris Craft yacht, the Liberty Belle. She was a beauty, the only good thing that came out of my marriage. I spent 4 years fixing her up, piece by piece. So when I bought a lakeside property with 10 acres, trees, and an expansive waterfront, the listing sealed the deal with 5 golden words: not part of any HOA. What I didn't realize: the lake was bordered on the far sides by Willow Creek Lakeside Estates, an HOA that believed the lake was their private backyard. At first, it was minor. Teens parking golf carts on my grass. A few locals dragging canoes across my dock. I was neighborly. I waved, helped untangle a fishing line, and kept to myself. But that goodwill was mistaken for weakness. Then came a Saturday morning where I found a pop-up tent on my dock, speakers blasting, and a Willow Creek Fishing Day banner strung between my trees. That's when it became clear. This wasn't ignorance. It was arrogance. I walked out in my robe and slippers and asked a woman to pack up. She turned and said, "Oh, we were told it was fine. That you were just some quiet guy who didn't care." Then came Karen Whitman, self-proclaimed HOA president, clipboard in hand, all fake smiles. She greeted me like a TV anchor. "Jake, right? We do this every year. It's tradition. One day a year, I'm sure you understand." "On my dock?" I asked. "Well, the lake's communal." "No," I said, "it's private. I own it." Her smile faded. "We'll talk to the city," she said, handing me a fake map claiming part of my shoreline was communal. I told her to leave. She left with a glare and a warning: "We'll handle this." I didn't waste time. Installed cameras. Pulled land and water rights. Turned out the lake had been privately owned since 1958. My deed included the dock, land, and water. The HOA had zero claim. So when they returned with bounce houses and fish cleaning stations, I let them party. Then I flipped the switch, shut the gates, sounded alarms, revoked access. Karen screamed for me to move my yacht. I reminded her it was my yacht on my dock on my lake. They filed a complaint with the city. The city scheduled an emergency review. Karen painted me as a recluse hoarding water. But I showed up with deeds, surveys, and photos. A councilman named Ross read the documents aloud. "You said this lake was always public? Because this deed says otherwise." Karen tried to spin it as tradition. I said, "Feelings don't equal ownership." Privately, the council admitted I was in the right. But Karen retaliated. She organized a lakeside protest. Kids with signs, adults with folding chairs chanting, "Let us swim." She brought a megaphone. I stood by the gate, calm. "One step on my land and you're trespassing." They set up tents and played music into the night. But the next morning, Liberty Belle had been tampered with. Broken railing. Trash everywhere. That was my last straw. The sheriff reviewed footage. Karen's teenage son and friends were caught red-handed. She pleaded, "Boys will be boys." They committed vandalism, the sheriff replied. Then came the cease and desist. Karen hired a lawyer, filed for emotional distress, claimed the yacht caused psychological harm. The local news showed up. Karen played the victim. The footage ignored trespassing and vandalism. I got threats online. People called me heartless. That's when my lawyer said countersue. So we did. For damages, defamation, harassment. I put up new signs, closed the lake, installed fences, and hired Jeff, a no-nonsense retired Marine. Karen called me a tyrant. Flyers appeared. Save our lake. Then, a twist. David Holloway, the man who sold me the lake, contacted me. We met. He handed me a box of original documents, permits, maps, and records back to the 1930s. My grandfather dug that lake. It's yours. Don't let them steal it. With those papers, we filed for a protective order. But Karen wasn't done. She hosted a fishing protest. Kayaks floated just off my dock. Peaceful protest, she shouted. The sheriff arrived. You're violating a court order. Karen was towed ashore on camera. The video went viral. Karen was removed from the HOA, but Douglas Price took over. Slick, confident, showed up on my dock with a smile and a lease proposal. You set the terms, he said. I read the fine print. Hidden clauses. They wanted control. No deal. Doug launched a PR campaign. Flyers. Websites. Hashtags. He threw a lake festival on county land. Canoes crept closer to my dock. Then I found it, a hidden water pump siphoning lake water into a truck. Called the sheriff. The truck was gone, but I had evidence. Then came a letter from the environmental office. Someone filed a complaint that I harmed wildlife. They were trying to find me. Again. Then Jeff showed me a video. Doug at an HOA brunch. We'll break him down. That lake's ours. Lisa Monroe, HOA treasurer, came forward. Doug wants to turn the lake into a revenue stream. Floating cafe, kayak rentals. She gave me a flash drive. Emails. Zoom calls. Plans. We filed a massive countersuit. Doug retaliated with media. Spun me as the villain. I released the recordings. The community exploded. Residents turned on Doug. He was removed. Then came the eerie part. At 3:13 a.m. a hooded figure appeared on my dock. Holding a gas can. I triggered the alarms. He fled. The sheriff confirmed it was Doug. An arrest warrant followed. Doug tried to sneak into the HOA office. Got caught. He had fake names, burner phones, plans for sabotage. He was arrested. No bail? It should have ended there. But I kept getting letters. Threats. Photos of my boat taken from the lake. Lisa confessed Doug mentioned a plan B. I upgraded security. Jeff moved into the guest cabin. Then the final message arrived. The lake remembers. Someone was still out there. Watching. But I was ready. I had my documents, my team, my vigilance. And Liberty Bell would float on, proud and untouched, as a reminder. I didn't just reclaim my lake. I reclaimed my peace, and no one would ever take it from me again.